Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the PLEX conundrum, the if and when you should use PLEX to fund your accounts. So this is a question I get asked on a semi-regular basis. When should I use PLEX to fund my accounts? And this is often from newer players just starting out or that haven't been in the game for a particularly long period of time. So in the long distant past this really wasn't an issue because the only way to play was to pay your monthly subscription to CCP. However, with the introduction of PLEX, then obviously the allure of being able to play the game for free can be quite appealing, and obviously a lot of people do work towards this on a regular basis. PLEX prices at the moment are relatively low in historical terms. PLEX price has over the years generally gone up and up and up, and it was considered basically like the gold standard of investment for EVE, that by buying PLEX you were always likely to get a return on your investment over time. However, at the start of last year, at the end of last year, as you can see, the price did crash quite considerably, and we are generally at incredibly low PLEX prices for EVE's historic average. So at the moment, PLEX in your account is quite reasonable. You need 1.4 billion ISK a month in order to be able to do that. So at the moment, 100 million ISK, give or take, for grinding per hour, which seems relatively reasonable. You will be able to PLEX your account within 14 hours of grinding. Now, when PLEXs were obviously higher, that amount of time was larger, and you'd have needed to put 17 to 18 hours of grinding in at 100 million ISK an hour. Now there are obviously people out there that are willing to do this grind and do it on a monthly basis in order to be able to play the game for free. So other than obviously grinding NPCs, there are other ways of making ISK for research, industry, etc. Hauling, take your pick. However, I think the vast majority of people that do grind for PLEX do it through NPC grinding, because with the ticks being relatively constant and stable, you can pretty much guarantee at the end of the month you'll be able to afford your PLEX, where obviously doing market stuff or industry, not only does it take quite a lot of ISK to be able to start, but the ISK can be quite irregular or erratic at times, and therefore you never know at the end of the month whether you will have enough in order to be able to PLEX your account. And this has encouraged obviously a lot of people to go to nullsec and join some of the alliances in order to be able to crab in peace. That is kind of coming to a bit of an end now that CCP has introduced the ESS. Now we'll have to see how that pans out in the end, but that has obviously or will reduce crabbing incomes slightly or significantly depending. Watch this space. So if you've watched previous videos, you'll know that I often talk about having my accounts PLEXed and that I use in-game currency in order to be able to run my accounts. However, over the years I've built quite an industrial backbone. I have a very decent amount of this to be able to invest and leave, and therefore I have gotten to the point in game where purchasing PLEX just makes sense. And I think this goes in general, that once you get enough assets or you've been playing long enough, you'll know when is the time that you want to be using PLEX, when basically you're acquiring ISK hand over fist and you're not really spending it, you're not really using it, and you're not really, the £10, £12, whatever it is a month, doesn't really, you can afford it in real life, but why keep spending it? And again, if you've got numerous alts, etc., that £10 a month can soon add up. So I think there's a point where you'll just instinctively find yourself with not a great deal that you want to either spend it on or do, and that PLEX in your account just kind of makes sense. However, if you're a newer player, obviously you don't have the assets there to fall back on, and it's going to be a lot harder for you to be able to reach the amount of ISK that is needed in order to be able to PLEX your accounts. Now, obviously, everybody's got real life circumstances that need to be taken into account, obviously, when looking to PLEX accounts. That obviously some people are young, don't have jobs, some people are unemployed, some people just enjoy the grind, etc. There's numerous reasons why some people would like to pay for their accounts via PLEX, and there are obviously reasons why it makes sense to have a subscription. So generally at this point in time, if you are a newish player, I would always suggest going the subscription based route, and there's couple of reasons for this. First of all, it takes the pressure off obviously having to plex your account every single month, and as a new player you want to be enjoying the game, you want to be just getting on with it, enjoying it, building up ISK reserves, buying the ships that you need, the skills, losing the ships, being able to replace them. You don't want the constant pressure of always looking over your shoulder thinking, my gosh, by the end of this month I have to have made enough to plex my account. And for the cost of, well, in the UK it's £12 a month, it's very, very reasonable. Now before I go any further, it has occurred to me that I haven't done a giveaway for a good while, so I think we'll give a rattlesnake away for this video. All I'm going to ask you to do is, you need to be subscribed, leave a comment, any comment, but it will need to have your in-game name so I am able to contract you said ship if you do win. I will pick a winner a week from today, so it will be on the 18th of November. So subscribe, leave a comment, any comment, don't care what it is, and your in-game name that you would like the contract to be set up to. And most people give you the real life conversion that working a job minimum wage for 2 hours will pay for your Plex, which you would have to grind for give or take 14 hours. So in a time ratio, it makes a lot of sense just to be able to obviously use real life money to buy Plex in order to fund your account. It's an investment of basically saving you time and giving you the freedom to basically just sit down and enjoy the game as it's meant to be without that constant need to grind. Now obviously there is always a need to grind in some respect in EVE, but at least you're grinding generally for something that you want and not something that you feel that you need. And again, for the price of £12 a month, again, if you can afford it, I would 100% go with it. I don't think, you know, playing the game in an alpha state or always trying to plex your account gives a great feeling of the game in general, because again, you're always under that pressure and that can be pretty miserable. Now on that side note, I wouldn't buy Plex, however I would probably buy skill injectors. Now thankfully these weren't a thing when I was growing up in EVE, or I dare say I would have bought a good number of these, and as it currently stands, these are obviously very, very cheap on a historical record or term. They have gone down, 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 down and down, and continue to drop as we speak, slowly but surely. So injectors, I feel, are a decent buy if you have the spare ISK. Now obviously to get an injector you're looking at 7 hours of grinding NPCs, which is relatively reasonable for 500,000 skill points. So I'm pretty sure you're aware that there are diminishing returns in regards to skill injectors, that after a certain amount of skill points you get less and less and less. But I think at the time when you are relatively new, I know 600 million ISK can seem like a lot, but depending on what you're doing, 6 hours of grinding, 6 hours of trawling wormholes, etc., 500,000 skill points every week just gives you that extra little boost to be able to train things a little bit quicker and get into the ships that you really want to get into. And it's a nice jump because obviously the skill system in EVE is designed to obviously keep you paying, but it's designed to make you progress at a steady pace as well, because obviously there are hundreds of ships, thousands of weapons, types, modules, etc., and by jumping too far too quick you can sometimes struggle, I think, to understand how the different weapon types, etc., all interact or how they counter one another. And as you're using in-game ISK in order to be able to purchase this, again, it's not going to make a difference if you don't make it within a week or a 2-week grind or whatever. Where Plex, if you're not grinding, obviously you fail to Plex your account, which is pretty significant. If you don't get your skill injector this week or next week, etc., it's not really going to make any real difference to your play experience whatsoever. It would just mean that you've just got to train like normal. So they're just my thoughts on the subject. Now obviously I understand everybody will have different opinions on this, but I would love to hear them. If you want to leave a comment, I do read and try and reply to every comment that is posted, assuming it is reasonable and not completely trollish. And so, thank you for your time, fly safe, talk to you soon.